If you're like most calisthenics athletes, the very first exercise you ever did was probably a bodyweight push-up. However, when it comes to building muscle, there's a few problems with this exercise. The first issue is that as you lower yourself down to the ground like this, eventually your chest hits the floor, which stops you from getting a full range of motion for the chest. In addition, when you're doing a push-up, you're only pushing up about 67% of your overall body weight. So if you're a 200-pound guy, that's the equivalent of doing bench presses with only 140 pounds. Not very difficult, right? So if you actually want to build a chest, stick around for my complete guide to calisthenics chest hypertrophy. The goal of this video series is to give you exercises that are easy to load, easy to track progress on, and can be completed with most standard calisthenics equipment as well as some optional weights. And in case you're transitioning from traditional gym workouts, I'm also going to tell you what gym exercises these calisthenics moves replaces. Starting off with some basic anatomy, the pecs consist of the larger pec major and the smaller pec minor. The pecs consist of two heads, the upper or clavicular head as well as the middle or sternocostal head. In addition, the lower fibers of the sternocostal head are sometimes known as the abdominal head or the lower head. Now moving into the main functions of the chest is primarily responsible for horizontal or transverse shoulder adduction. This is the movement that you see during something like a flat bench press as well as a cable fly. In addition to this, the upper chest is also responsible for shoulder flexion, which is bringing your arms up and forward. So for this, think about something like an incline bench press or even a low to high cable fly. The pecs also contribute to internal rotation of the shoulder, as well as shoulder extension in some very specific circumstances, such as when you're bringing your arms from a flexed position back down to a neutral position by your sides. For this, think about an exercise such as a weighted dip. The chest also plays a smaller role in many other movements, but they will not be covered for the purposes of this video since they're not significant for chest hypertrophy. Now that we've covered the basic anatomy and functions of the chest muscles, for my practical recommendations for chest hypertrophy, I recommend 3 moves: a horizontal press, an incline press, as well as a decline press. And if you want to isolate the chest better than you can through most pressing variations, you can swap out some of your presses for flies instead. This will also target the chest primarily through shoulder adduction. Starting out with the upper chest, for an incline press, we need an exercise that effectively replaces the incline barbell bench press, as well as an incline or low to high cable fly. One of my favorite calisthenics options for the upper chest is a feet elevated push-up, which will train the chest through shoulder flexion and adduction. Even though it's called a decline push-up in calisthenics, your body angle is going to mimic the position you'd be in during an incline bench press, which will help target the upper chest. To get the most out of your decline push-ups, I like to use parallettes for a deeper stretch and a greater range of motion. You can also play around with your grips here. You can use a neutral or semi-supinated grip, which often feels better on the joints and can emphasize the chest more, whereas a pronated grip will mimic a standard incline barbell press. Just make sure to watch out for your shoulders if you choose to use a pronated grip. And if you can't elevate your feet, you can also pike your hips, though be careful not to turn this into a pike push-up, which will become more of a front delt exercise. To make decline push-ups harder, you can add weight with a vest, a backpack, bands, or even a dip belt. To make the exercise easier, you can ditch the parallettes to shorten the range of motion, or you can use band assistance anchored from above. Other great upper chest alternatives include guillotine push-ups on parallettes, which will give you an intense stretch on the upper chest, and this is going to replace something like a guillotine press or a Larsen press that you might do at the gym. You can also add decline ring flies, which is just a regular fly on rings, but you do it with your feet elevated. This is also going to help replace a low to high cable fly. And if you want to get an intense upper chest contraction, you can do decline push-ups but add a twist on each rep, and that's going to mimic something like a low to high cable crossover. Moving on to our horizontal pushing exercises to target the middle chest, we need something to replace a barbell bench press, a pec deck, or a flat fly. My favorite middle chest exercise is a push-up on parallettes with both my hands and feet elevated, which allows me to load up using a dip belt. This gives an incredible stretch very similar to a dumbbell bench press or a camber bar bench press, but because you can protract your scapula at the top of each rep, you also train your serratus anterior a lot better than you would in a traditional bench press. If you don't have extra weight, try archer push-ups or a resistance band wrapped around your upper back. If you want to train chest adduction, you can try chest flies using gymnastic rings or sliders. If you don't have sliders, you can also use socks on a hardwood floor or paper plates on a carpet. You can also experiment with ring pullovers since the chest can actually contribute to shoulder extension, but in my opinion, those are better suited for the lats for most people. Finally, to get that peak contraction like a cable crossover, you can also add in twisting push-ups to really drive your arms across the midline of your body. This is really good if you have trouble feeling your chest during an exercise. Finally, for the lower chest, my favorite exercise is a weighted dip, which trains the chest through shoulder extension and adduction. Pick 1 or 2 variations and stick with them consistently to help track your progress. My go-tos are regular parallel bar dips or a semi-supinated externally rotated dip. Using an externally rotated grip forces you to lean further forward, making it a more chest-biased exercise, and it also feels really good on my shoulders. Other really good dip variations include straight bar dips, which have great carryover for muscle ups, as well as Korean dips, which are a great introductory exercise for straight arm bicep conditioning if you want to learn skills like Hefesto, back lever, and planche. You can also use gymnastic rings either with a regular grip or a rings turned out grip, although you're going to need practice to account for the extra stability demand with rings. Personally, I prefer to use bars instead of rings since it's easier to balance on the bars, but if you only have rings, you will adjust over time. To make dips easier, you can keep your feet on the ground, or you can do hands elevated or inclined push-ups. In addition to this, you can also place a resistance band under your knees and attach it to the bar or rings during a dip. If you don't have access to extra weight but need to make the exercises harder, you can do bodyweight alternatives like archer dips as well as pseudo planche push-ups done with your feet on the floor or with band assistance. Regarding how to add these exercises to your routine, I like to train the chest 2 to 3 times per week with about 2 days of rest between sessions. In addition, I recommend 1 or 2 chest exercises per workout, and you should experiment with set and rep numbers to determine how much volume you can recover from before your next workout. Personally, I would start with 2 sets per exercise per session. Regarding reps, I recommend sets of 5 to 10 reps for your primary pushing movement and 5 to 15 reps for your secondary movement. For each set, you should go anywhere from 0 to 2 reps in reserve to make sure you're training hard enough to maximize your muscle growth. I personally prefer to train to absolute failure just to standardize my exercise tracking. As your reps increase past 10 to 15, you need to add weight or choose a harder variation. Remember, your goal needs to be to add weight or add a rep over time. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you also check out my lat hypertrophy video and stay tuned for upcoming videos on the biceps, triceps, shoulders, and traps, which are coming soon.